Is this a drill or something?
But most important of all, we've learned that the Emperor himself is personally overseeing the final stages of the construction of this Death Star. Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
We know Galen Erso was key to the construction of the infamous superweapon known as the Death Star, yet we only have a glimpse of how the second Death Star was completed, with the first taking around 20 years to construct and the second within a handful. Canon has explained that to build this even larger station several years faster than the previous, newly appointed Moff Tian Jejared was given oversight of the project under the cover title Director of Imperial Energy Systems, the man who Darth Vader promptly threatened aboard the second superweapon in Return of the Jedi.
We shall double our efforts.
I hope so, Commander, for your sake. The Emperor is not as forgiving as I am.
In Legends though, Bothans were not the only beings to die around the second Death Star. Its tale is arguably much darker and may have implications for a possible Rogue 2, or at least the story Lucasfilm will no doubt tell in some form about the second Death Star's construction. Originally, instead of Galen Erso, a man by the name of Beville Lemelisk played the role of engineer and architect for the first and second Death Star, as well as other notable superweapons. How Beville Lemelisk's tale crucially differs from Galen Erso was that the flaw in the first Death Star was by a mistake that he had made, and he was happy to help the Empire rain chaos upon the galaxy and build their superweapons. Now, unlike Erso, who had made the failsafe as a last act of defiance against the oppressive Empire, though this is where Beville's tale takes a much more savage turn. After the destruction of the first Death Star, which Beville was ignorant of, he was sent to the Imperial Center. He actually began preparing himself for a commendation from Palpatine. As he stood before the Emperor, a cage dropped around him, while Palpatine informed him that the Death Star had in fact been destroyed. To the architect's final initial surprise, Palpatine did not want to execute him, at least not permanently. The Emperor was greatly disappointed with the failure of the superweapon and chose to use Lemelisk as an example to others who would fail him. Furthermore, the design flaws exploited by the Alliance was stemmed from the architect's own work. Lemelisk could do nothing as a swarm of flesh-eating piranha beetles came up through holes in the floor. As soon as one of them bit the architect, all of them began to eat him, slowly tearing away at his flesh. They entered his ears and slashed eyes, blinding him and putting him in excruciating pain for an hour. As a result of his critical wounds, Beville Lemelisk died. Seems like old Galen Erso got off pretty lightly with that explosion. Now, this is totally horrific in and of itself. However, the Emperor wasn't done with Beville Lemelisk. He has a second Death Star to construct, one that didn't possess the same flaws as the first. Disturbingly, the Emperor didn't waste Lemelisk's genius and had him cloned rather than left dead. Lemelisk was still motivated by scientific intrigue and the fear of the Emperor, so he set to the task of building a second Death Star in a handful of years versus 20-odd, which makes sense. If you've been ripped apart by beetles, you're probably going to learn how to build a second Death Star a lot faster. During the development, the Emperor, now well adjusted to the idea of cloning Beville, executed and resurrected Lemelisk a further 6 times just to show him his boss. That means 7 times he was killed and brought back to life, killed, brought back to life, just because the Emperor was pissed. Now, while his story does go on and he's finally executed permanently some years later by the New Republic, offering little more than defiant indignation in his final moments, requesting that his firing squad make sure they do it right this time. So 8 times he's died finally. What we have here is a brutal story of legend that was more involved with the Emperor, and it explains more about the second Death Star, which, as previously mentioned in canon, it's right now just briefly spoken about, as we've seen a visibly shaken Tian in Return of the Jedi, and they've said, okay, he's the guy that builds it. That's it, outside of Galen Erso's story in the first Death Star. Now, with all that being said, with clones that were incredibly prominent in the expanded universe, from the Emperor himself who was cloned, Luke Skywalker, the Starkiller, and many others, somewhat cheating death with clone bodies, it was something that we'd seen many times. If there is a Rogue 2, or at least the story I believe they will no doubt go into detail with, would it not be insane if Galen Erso were to share the same fate as Beville, resurrected by the Emperor and punished several times over for his defiance, or even Krennic as well, as a show of what can happen to Imperial underlings that fail him. As the Grand Inquisitor once said,
"There are some things far more frightening than death."
But the beauty of this video is it is just the start of the discussion. Our love for Star Wars surrounds and it binds us together. I thought that Beville's story was very poignant, as we hadn't seen too much around the second Death Star, and even though Rogue One does a beautiful job of telling the first Death Star story in a different way, I thought as there is some truth in Legends, they could bring back elements of the story. I mean, if Galen Erso was cloned, that would be insane. But let me know in the comments below how you'd like to see Rogue 2 or the second Death Star story play out, because if you love Star Wars, I want to talk to you about it. It's as simple as that, my friends. If you want to stay up to date with the latest Star Wars videos on origins, games, and theories, don't forget to use those force powers of yours and hit subscribe. And hey, leave a comment below about what you want to see in future videos. It may just get covered. Thanks for watching, and may the force be with you. Always.